Welcome back to It's a Graham and Matt podcast. Say your name, Graham. I'm Matt.
What? Oh, hey, no.
Well, that's Matt. That's Graham.
Yeah, it's all everywhere.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you.
Yeah.
I forgot what we were doing here at the beginning of the show.
Well,
that's right.
You are ancient.
It does happen.
I am ancient. There's a memory loss thing going on here.
So tonight's interesting. Tonight's episode's gonna be interesting. Tonight's interesting. If you notice my background, it's a little clue into kind of what we're going to talk about. Not necessarily news,
Pimple popping. We're going to talk about
popping.
Pimple popping.
Right. I will say there might be elements of the episode that might upset some people. It's a very divisive topic, and it's a topic that talks about that divisiveness. And
thank God I'm in charge of the guests next week because we need a break.
Yeah. So love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Make sure you talk about it in the comments. But what we kind of want to start with, there's been some shit coming out about this little insurrection. Now, if you recall, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, was it 3 weeks ago about, right? Or 2 weeks ago we talked about this?
2 weeks now.
I mean, we're pretty hard hitting on that, talking about calling these people domestic terrorists and insurrectionists and everything like that. It seems like some stuff is coming out now that, to me, makes it seem like, maybe this isn't everything that it was said it was. Now, it's true. A woman tried to jump a barricade and was shot. It's also true that somebody smacked a cop in the head with a fire extinguisher or something, right?
Yeah.
It's also true that
And there was bad actors that were going around with zip tie cuffs. They had also erected a gallows right out in front, and they were searching for specific people, specific senators and legislators that they were going to, quote unquote, bring to justice.
Yeah, but I mean,
insane amount of craziness was happening that day, and where we're kind of leading to is that potentially we were blindsided by some of this craziness, and you know, it's kind of like a crescendo, right? A crescendo to build something to make something worse than it really. Not saying that this situation wasn't bad. Like this, to me, I'm still pissed.
Hey, man. Glad to see you guys.
But now I'm becoming more pissed because there's other stuff coming to sight here. Now that all the camera stuff is coming out, interviews are coming out, people are turning themselves in. There's a lot of stuff. Matt, you finish what your thoughts.
Yeah, so for me, it's like, it kind of reminds me, you remember, I was a year or two ago, that Covington boy, where like that Native American guy was banging the drum and yelling in his face because and they said like because the boy had a smug look on his face, he was doing so bad and he's doing all this bad shit. Turns out none of that was true, and the kid wasn't even being disrespectful, depending, I guess, on which news media source you're looking at. But it kind of reminds me of that. So, Alan, if you want to play that clip, so you guys might know this person is QAnon Shaman, but this is him going into the Senate chamber. And so, like, we saw all the pictures of Homeboy just chilling, screaming, yelling, all that stuff. Let's watch this video.
Hey, fucking hey, man. Glad to see you guys. You guys are fucking patriots.
Any chance I could get you guys to leave the Senate wing?
We will. I've been making sure they ain't disrespecting the place.
Okay, just want to let you guys know this is like the sacredest place.
I know.
Hey, no, I'm gonna take it.
Wednesday, the President of the United States incited a deadly insurrection.
I can tell you that I had a very close encounter where I thought I was going to die.
Any chance I could get you guys to leave the Senate wing?
We will. I've been making sure they ain't disrespecting the place.
So, I mean, like, that's good. You can cut it from there. Yeah, so to me, it's so stupid because, like, now granted, all this time up to this, we've been hearing things like, oh God, like these people, they're the most dangerous folks in the world, and all these senators and House members are fearing for their lives. But like, now granted, this could be tricky camera shit, and It could be one of those things where we didn't see everything still. I'll leave that up to possibility. I'll also leave it up to the possibility that maybe some people were in there to do some shit. They found pipe bombs and stuff. But that scene in the Senate chamber with that cop just like, hey guys, you guys can maybe think about leaving? And like, they're like, we're not going to disrespect anything. Yeah. Like, to me, it seems like, I mean, they did, yes. But I mean,
being in there. But again, that's that part where I wonder about like how much of this. Now we can actually use trumped up without talking about Trump. But how much of this was like trumped up to the point of there's a lot of scary stuff that was happening at that. I mean, people died, right? People died. People got into the ER. People got injured. A lot of bad things happened. Pipe bombs. The flag was taken down. Trump's flag was putting up. We had the dude marching around with the Confederate flag. Whether that was allowed or not, that's still absolutely.
I think it just makes him an asshole.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about you, but that's just super disrespectful. I mean, we fought a brutal, bloody war, and that flag represented the losing side, and it never, ever was ever flown in the Capitol or even marched down the street of Washington.
And that flag it just doesn't represent what America is supposed to be. The thought, the mindset that America, the dream, right? Mm-hmm. So when I see like that video, absolutely just causes more chaos in my head about like what's going on.
What actually happened?
Like where is the truth? And that's the problem with all this is where is the truth? Were people actually in fear? I'm sure there were some senators in fear. Like hearing about like Pence saying that he's not leaving and he had to be told 3 times to leave. I don't think that
happened with Pence.
Yeah. I don't think they have a choice. Like, how do they have a choice to leave? Like,
Are you talking like leaving the Senate chamber or the leaving
the Senate chamber? No, the Senate chamber.
Because as the Senate president, he was presiding over the vote to confirm the Electoral College votes.
Well, I think they wanted to evacuate him. He's like nah. But like, I'm wondering.
I'm finally gonna stand my ground on something.
Yeah.
Besides,
it only took him like 50 years to grow a backbone.
Here's the thing, though. So, like you mentioned, Alan, about like gallows and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
Like, what's illegal about having a gallows out front? If it's a political statement, right?
Yeah. There's nothing illegal about it.
Graham, do you remember our episode? God, it was like right in the beginning of the presidency, and we were talking about Kathy Griffith holding a beheaded Donald Trump.
Yep. Yeah.
And I talked about the fact that Republicans and right wingers were hanging effigies of Obama and setting them on fire. But here's the thing, like, nothing is different about this. Like, having a gallows up front and having a symbolic image that you want to kill a politician. Yeah, it's shitty to do. And you're kind of a shitty person for doing it. But how is that any different than a comedian holding a beheaded, bloodied head of the president? And this is before he got real shitty.
Yeah, I think the difference for me is these are places you're not supposed to be. And so if you're protesting in places that we consider sacred ground for our government, right, for our country, these are places that you shouldn't be doing that then. These are places you're not allowed, you're not supposed to be going into. And whether you forcefully put yourself in there or you were let in by people like Mike Norman, it's still just that mindset of like, you've gone too far, at least in the disrespect for our own disrespect. Like when we talk about Kathy Griffin, we hated that. We thought that was absolutely disgusting and just trash. But we also are like, she gets to do that. Now again, when we talk about cancel culture, we look at that and we say it makes sense if her channel or her people, her representatives or her company that airs her says, we're cutting you loose, we're done with you because of what
I think that did happen too.
And it did happen. And her career it tanked, right? I don't think she had much of a career anyway, but her career probably tanked. But when you look at that, like, we also agreed, like, that's her choice to do so. She had a platform. She used that platform to make her statement, and that's what she wanted to do. Whether it was right or wrong, it's her choice, right? And we disagreed with it. But at the same time, she didn't go into the Capitol House and sit in the chambers doing that, right? That would have been a different, like, that would have been like super different for me, at least, just because I'm like, all right, now you're pushing that boundary. Now isn't an actual threat, or are you still just making a political statement and a protest? And I think that's what some of this needs to be looked at, is like, what is the threat and what is a protest, right?
Right.
Yep.
Is it an insurrection or was it a protest? That guy walking in and say he was allowed in, the guy with the animal pants, whatever his name is, I forget.
The QAnon shaman?
Yeah, the QAnon shaman. Yeah. I'm not woke, I guess.
Oh yeah, by the way, he's also vegan. You'd have a lot in common.
Yeah,
well, I guess we're on the same team.
You guys are
man.
basically brothers.
I walk around in fur all the time too.
Yeah.
But if that is also the statement, and he was allowed in because he didn't look like he fought his way into the building, right?
No.
And I haven't seen video.
Right,
I haven't seen video from him from the lawn all the way up and like see if he like fought in. If he walked all the way in, let's say, then is that an insurrection? No, that's a protest that probably went a little bit too far.
Yep.
Right. I'm glad you said that, because like it's more and more seeming to me that it was not an insurrection, and in fact it was more of a protest gone too far. But like there's other
minus the assholes with the pipe bombs, minus the assholes who killed people, minus the assholes who are jumping through a window and get shot. Like those people, that's where it becomes a threat, right? But if the QAnon shaman was allowed to walk all the way through, then that could be a protest gone too far.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan, I got another video here that I want you to play here. Let me get ahead and put it in the admin chat here. But I mean, this is another thing that I talked about before, and I still stand by what I'm saying, but I do think that this is worth hearing from one of the Republican members of Congress. So let me go ahead and play it here for you. Okay. Spoiler alert: he's a douchebag. Like I hate him, but I do think he brings up some important stuff here to at least consider in the grand scheme of things. So whenever you're ready, Alan, if you want to share that.
I denounced political violence from all ends of the spectrum, but make no mistake, the left in America has incited far more political violence than the right. For months, our cities burned, police stations burned, our businesses were shattered, and they said nothing. Or they cheerled for it, and they fundraised for it, and they allowed it to happen in the greatest country in the world. Now, some have cited the metaphor that the president lit the flame. Well, they lit actual flames, actual fires, and we put them out.
Expired. There will be order in the House.
I mean, he's not 100% wrong. Like, so if you look at the news media coverage of when all these protests were happening across the country, and they were firebombing police stations, and they were burning down businesses and everything, the media, for the most part, said, I get it. And I said, I get it. Because, I mean, my philosophy was completely different than most other people's. Because my philosophy is like, if you have a system for so long that is going to take advantage of you and exploit you and be racist towards you and fuck you over because of the color of your skin or your, socioeconomic status, at what point do you reach a breaking point and you burn the fucking thing down?
Well, and here we are, three white guys trying to talk about this, but
right,
even that situation again, from people that I've talked to, who were up there with the protests and who lived in the communities of these different areas in our country, a lot of the conversations that I've had were protests were legit, and the protests went too far again, where you start getting different people in there with different mindsets, creating more chaos, right? Now, there's going to be chaos. Every protest has a chaos. It's very limited. Even breast cancer freaking awareness, Sally Fields or whatever that thing is.
Isn't that an actress?
Oh, she's an actress. Whatever.
Forrest Gump's mom?
All right, yeah.
You mean Susan B. Komen? Or G.
Yeah,
Komen.
whatever. People get emotional, right?
Yeah,
and especially a people group who's been just subject to so much crap forever, right? For let's just say thousands of years, forever. Yeah, things are going to pop off. But what was again, even the summer stuff when you look at it, and when people like compare apples to apples about like how many cops are here versus there and all those different things, everybody knew that it was going to pop off.
Yeah.
And that's why there's community leaders. That's why there's actors and sports people and all this different stuff, like high profile people all saying like, be chill, protest, get our voice out there. But let's be safe about this so our voice is heard, right?
Yeah.
But everyone knew it was going to pop off. And so sometimes it was felt like it was allowed to be. And then when it was dragged on and dragged on and dragged on, it felt like it was completely allowed to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is still that mindset of like, yeah, man, like I don't get it, but I understand, right? I don't get it because I'm not black. I'm not a person of color. But I make sure to be aware and make sure to try to, communicate with my friends of color to understand more. I'm never going to get it because I'm not that. But there are so many moments too that you go, all right, this is wrong. This is bad. This is going too far. And then you start seeing like a bunch of white people burning buildings down and doing all this stuff too. And you're just like, man, it's a protest that went too far. It's something that we needed, right? We needed our eyes wide open. We needed a kick in our butt so we can see some differences, or not see some differences to make changes, right?
Yeah.
But then it was almost like allowed because we were worried about stopping that or worried about like not supporting it. And then when you look at this again, like not support, well, what's your confusion? Not supporting like the change, right? The change mentality. So like if you said, oh, we just need to stop all this, what are they doing burning their cities down? Then you tell them, oh, I don't have one. God. I thought we were going to coordinate here. I'm getting distracted.
I just noticed. Like I was like,
this is like it's supposed to be like middle school where we all either make sure we all wear black shirts, we all wear Star Wars. It's supposed to be like that, you guys.
Well, I mean, it's appropriate for like the topic we're talking about because just like Star Wars, the rebels versus the Empire, It actually ties in with the topic pretty well.
Oh, do explain, because now that you brought that up, let our viewers hear, Mr.
So the reason we started off talking about this, because we were talking about the insurrection earlier, well, it was like a precursor to what is potentially to come, which would be a Civil War II. Commonly known on the internet as Civil War II Electric Boogaloo. Which is where the Boogaloo Boys get their name from. And so to tie it in with Star Wars, you have the rebels, which are the remnants of the Old Republic. And then you have the Empire, Emperor Palpatine's fascist government, where he just took control of every aspect of their society and then started oppressing like the minorities or the non-human races, like the Wookiees, for example. So
maybe they shouldn't be so hairy.
Yeah. I mean, but they are awesome.
It's true.
But
do you think Harry and the Hendersons? Do you think he was a Wookiee?
Do I think he was a Wookiee? No.
He was a Bigfoot.
But basically to tie in, there are people out there that they have that mindset right now that we need to rise up and we need to fight against the man. We need to stop government overreach, which. I mean,
on both sides.
On both sides. And I think, reasonably, a lot of people would agree that there has been a lot of government overreach that has gone on, especially in the last 20, 30 years. And it's just been building and building. So basically, they think they're the rebels and the U.S. federal government is the evil empire.
Yeah.
That's
and the rest of us are all the clones that we're just waiting for the switch to be turned on and
execute
to tell us the code, and then we're going to go, yeah. I mean, and that's how I feel like with this information that's like always getting blasted at us about like what's reality and what's not. And so all of us who aren't a part of one side or another are just waiting for that order, right?
Yeah.
And that order is going to be whatever's being fed to us by social media, by news outlets, by just all the bullshit that's coming towards us. Like that's how I feel. Like I feel like we're the clones. and we're just waiting for that order. And we're not going to know whether it's right or wrong too, because we're like, something's got to happen, right?
Yep. Yeah, kind of like what you were saying though, Graham, about like the distraction and everything. I mean, I do think you're right. Like, it was something that's opening our eyes to everything that's going on. But I mean, what I've been reading, what I've been watching about that insurrection at the Capitol, and basically what I've come to terms with is when it comes to, you know, Black Lives Matter protests and all of that other protests at that time, firebombing buildings and destroying businesses, I agree with it. Number one. Like, I do think that they were tired of a system that fucked them over, and that's what the response was. However, even though I agree with what they did, I can't in my right mind say that it also wasn't an insurrection of sorts. Like, in the same vein as this protest being an insurrection, instead of firebombing a police station, you know, they stormed a Capitol building. Because you know what? People died in the other protests as well.
Yep.
You know, and the people died at the protests at the Capitol. I think it's best to say that their protest gone too far, but I truly think that if you're going to define one of those as an insurrection, the other one is an insurrection as well. And so tying that back in, like Alan is too, we're kind of at a crux here in our country where our divide has grown so much that we have these types of things happening. So, I mean, we have civil protests on each side. And so, like, the thing is like, you know, you have these protests from the left and the people on the right are viewing that as insurrection.
Yeah.
And then vice versa. But the thing is but it goes beyond just like a civil disagreement now. When we've been in full out culture war, probably, I would say, since the
Reagan era, actually.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think like that's going to be the point where we really started to see the divisiveness, but I think it's really started to come into fruition probably the post 9/11 era. Mm-hmm. You know, as our economy has sunk, you know, we have, and then we're also allowing more things. So I mean, in that time since 9/11, we have gay marriage legalized. You know, we have abortion is still legal. Even though countless Republicans have said we're going to get rid of it, it's still legal. You know, we have a lot of social issues. That's true, money. We have a lot of social issues.
Everything's
for the
money,
left.
So it doesn't matter.
And so far, the left is winning that culture war. But at some point, you know, it started with the Tea Party and saying we're going to take our country back.
Yep.
And so I think we're truly at a time now where it's going to take very little to start something off. You know, a lot of people thought something like that little douchebag in Kenosha that shot those protesters. Yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse, that little bastard. You know, because on one hand, you have gun owners that are saying, you know, if somebody's going to come at me with a skateboard and try and hit me with it, I'm going to shoot them. But it goes beyond just life or death situations like that. Like they were literally that's the definition of an ideological showdown.
Yeah.
You know, you have far right militias that this fucker was part of, number one, and you know, police are driving by, responding to a protest because another black dude was shot, and they're saying, "Hey, we're really thankful you guys are here." Now, granted, they were helping clean up some graffiti, sure. They were also guarding buildings. But were they there just to guard those buildings, or were they there to shoot some lefties that they didn't like?
Well, and again, like that saying of like, you know, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Well, if the fight didn't needed a gun in the first place, why are we showing up to it? Yep. Right? Like,
right.
Well, you know, and that's the part. Like, I understand why he used his gun. Yep. Because because shit was going down, and what are you going to do when you have that type of weapon with you? You're going to use it for defense. But did that situation ever need to take place?
Well,
not a chance. Not a chance did it ever need to take place. It could have been completely avoided. But again, it goes back to division in thought, division in purpose, and what we're being fed too. You know, like what is that mindset?
I'm gonna try to like kind of play the neutral ground here. But in his case, like I understand why, like you said, why he brought the gun with him. But
no, I don't understand why he brought the gun with him. I understand why he ended up using it
as a source of protection because he thought, blah blah blah. This is some crazy rioting going on. But at the same time, he drove what was it, like 100, 150 miles or 100 miles?
No.
He wasn't from that area. Was what I'm trying to get at.
He's literally he was literally maybe a half hour away.
Yeah.
Like that's where he lived in Illinois.
Yeah.
But it was fucking illegal for him to carry that weapon in Wisconsin anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
he's not old enough.
So that's one of the issues. The other issue is that he drove from somewhere else to go there. And like if his initial thought was, I'm going to go volunteer to help out because I have some medical training, because I believe he had some advanced first aid and stuff. So that's why initially he said he went. But then why bring the gun with you if you aren't going, if you're going just...
Why bring the gun? Because you're representing yourself as something when you bring a gun. I'm a gun owner and I'm a gun carrier. But I flat out, my perspective on that is I am not going to carry my gun outside of conceal, right? Yeah. I'm going to conceal it all the time. I'm not going to carry it outside of conceal, because if I carry it outside of conceal, to me, I'm like, what am I trying to represent?
No.
That I'm a badass? Don't fuck with me? Or I'm afraid, or I'm here to protect what? You know what I'm saying? Like
that's what I'm trying to get to, is that he had no real need, because if he was just going in to provide medical care, what does he have to be worried about?
Right.
Right.
Well,
he
came
in there with his ideology in mind to defend his ideology.
Yep.
And
again, he saved his life, his own life.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, well, no, he did end up saving his life because he had a gun, right?
Yeah.
Do you think they would have killed him though?
No, because none of this would have happened if he didn't fucking have a gun.
I don't even think they would have killed him. They may have smacked him in the head with a skateboard, but he was sitting there brandishing a gun.
If he didn't have a gun, if he didn't have a gun, we wouldn't know this.
It was because he was brandishing. I think that they actually ended up going after him because they thought he was like on the other side of the white power kind of stuff.
Well, straight up, no, and that's just it in general. If you walk into a school right now with a gun, what's going to happen? People are going to come after you.
Yeah.
Right? If you walk into a police station, even though you are allowed to carry a gun into a police station, so there's states that you can carry it out, right?
Yep.
Open conceal, open carry.
Which Minnesota is.
But what are you going to expect? That's not usual behavior, right? That's not normal behavior. So if we would have showed up at, let's say there's a protest, a pipeline protest, right? And we're a bunch of white dudes with beards that maybe we were there because we support the protest, maybe we were there because we don't support the protest. But we show up with guns.
Instantly escalates.
Yep.
Instantly escalates. It doesn't matter what side you're on, because you don't get enough time to even say what fucking side you're on, right?
But
depending on what you're wearing for clothing can help. Like if we're wearing an American flag and like military stuff, people might be like, well, you're not here to support water.
But the difference is, Graham, is that the color of our skin would give us a free pass to be able to escalate it without there being further escalation on the other side.
Oh, in those situations, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not every situation, but we're talking about racial stuff right now at this point. Yeah, for sure. And that's, that's kind of the big deal. I was at the casino the other night, and my buddy made a really good point. Like there was a Native American dude who was getting removed from the casino, and it took like 25-30 minutes for him to get removed. He kind of could do whatever he wanted to, but he still was able to get removed. And I was like, man, that kind of seemed like it took a while. He was like, yeah, but if it was you, they never would have removed you. And I'm like, well, and it is one of those statements. Like, it's like, yeah, all right, like, makes a little sense. Like, even in a place like that that's tribally run, there's still like some of that freedom that you don't notice you have, right? That white privilege that you don't notice that you have. And so, yeah, I think even that mindset is like, well, I can do this. without any consequence is very much potentially a white privilege thing too. And I don't know. I look at all these things, and it really gets to a point of like everything that happens, no matter good cause, bad cause, there's always some group, there's always some people, whatever side it is, to come there and escalate it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. When we need to see something as Americans, when we need to finally go, enough is enough. We know it's happening, but we need to see it happening, right? A lot of people know it's happening, but they don't believe it till they see it, right?
Yeah.
So racism happens. Well, if white people want to know about racism, white people need to see it more often because white people don't get to see it, right? Yep. So we need to know what happened. We need to know that it's happening. We need to see that it's happening. We need to hear about it. We need to become more educated about it. And so when we see it, that's a good. It's not a good thing, but it's a good thing that we're becoming aware, right? And so we can help change the mindset, get the wheel turning, and make our country better and take care of each other as a nation.
Even the other day, I was on Reddit and I can't remember what post it was about, but someone was talking like, oh yeah, that's just that this is just a more evidence of white privilege, and someone commented, that's overblown. Racism in America isn't as widespread as it is, and like other people just hammered at them like, are you kidding me? Did you not see the protests this summer? Did you not see how the white protesters were treated versus the Black Lives Matter protesters were treated?
But again, where I'm getting to with that is, once we start seeing the reality of what's happening within our country, within our people, something comes out of left field and blindsides us, right? Yep. It's like in every movie where they're driving a car and they're like at the edge and they see the border and they're like, freedom, right? Freedom, my way. I finally see the end. I finally see everything. I'm a conscious human being. I'm aware of what happened during my whole 2-hour movie of all this chaos. And then, bam, a semi-truck comes out of the side and just kills them, right?
Yep.
That's what happens with everything that we see when it comes politically, when it comes to our culturally within our country, when it comes to the changes that need to be had, is that we see it and starts to become something, and then something will come out of left field and destroy that purpose, that movement, that good thing, and make it into a bad thing. So this summer, George Floyd, those protests we needed to see. Sadly, we needed to see George Floyd's situation, right? We needed to see that. The nation needed to see that because it's a reality. And then it got blindsided from both sides and turned into something massive. And then George Floyd just kind of feathered away a little bit there.
24 hours news cycle at work, dude. Yep. But it kind of like what you guys are saying, though. Here's the problem. Perception is what fuels reality. So, I mean, like, whether we're just more woke or some bullshit like that, we have our own perception of what reality is. Now, I agree with our perception of reality. I think that's the way things truly are. But the thing is, I mean, if you are a white person living in the South or living in rural America, you feel constantly like your values are being undermined. Yep. You feel threatened by those around you. Like, while some of that is probably racist, yes, I mean, it is racist. It's definitely something to consider, at least from a sociological viewpoint, because ultimately, at the end of the day, that is the sentiment that is fueling the issues.
No, you're totally right. It's definitely it comes down to the whole seeing is believing. We don't see it happen on a daily basis because of where I live in rural America. Graham lives in relatively rural type city, but he also gets to witness that kind of stuff happening at the same time. Wouldn't you agree, Graham? That living where you live, you get to see that kind of like built-in cultural racism.
Yeah, and part of that is because I choose to, and I choose to be a part of it as much as I can, to be aware and to be supportive.
Yeah.
Not in being racist, not be supportive in being racist, but being supportive in like change.
Yeah.
And also helping others realize like, you might be ignorant to what your belief system is. You might be wrong to how you think another culture how you've been defined by what another culture is. Yeah, it's just dirty. I mean, it's that perception and that willingness to be aware or not too. I think that's the other thing. Like a lot of people who don't have to be aware or don't choose to be aware don't want to be.
Yeah.
Like there's no way in the back of my mind. There are some people that are just like so unattainable, right? When it comes to like political outrage that's going on or racial disparity that's going on, that they're just so outside of like reality anyway that they just don't even think it's happening. Like,
well, like for example,
like what Republicans are this or Democrats are that? Nah, like there's people that are just out and left, like way the frick out there in outer space that just they don't need to worry about it because
but
they're okay.
Here's the issue. Like, so I mean, even taking race out of it, because I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, if we are talking about what could be the next American Civil War, I personally think that race is probably one of the lowest things that is affecting that and could cause that. I think what it comes down to is some of the values involved. Yep. So, I mean, for some people, if you think about the elections of the last 2 years, or the last two elections, so Trump's presidency, Biden's presidency, like it's all goes back to that culture war now. And so the thing that I'm seeing now is you have people that are so engrossed into their viewpoint. Like I said, calling Trump a fascist or saying that Biden is, the new Stalin because he's a socialist and all this. The thing is at what point do all of these, old fucking man, you're so stupid. Anyways,
it cracks me up because out of all the candidates that are socialist, he was not one of them. That would have been.
And he could barely put together a competent sentence. You can't fucking.
That was Bernie, and
everyone deserves
He's the worst.
Will you shut up, man?
At what point does this tinderbox ignite? So, like, one of the podcasts that we would recommend everybody listen to
wholeheartedly.
It's called "It Could Happen Here," and basically it talks about how easily a second American Civil War could happen. Because a lot of people in this country, they're like, it'd never happen, because, I still go to work. I still come home. I still can play my computer. I can still watch the news. Everything's fine. But like, there are people on both sides ready for this to pop off. I mean, one of the things you see with every election, right, is gun sales going up. One thing, real unexpected, is the people on the left who are buying guns
are now starting to arm themselves. Yeah.
So people are gearing up. So I mean, before this election happened, before the inauguration, I had people at my job saying, I would pull out half of your money from the bank and have cash. And like, I would prepare. Like, these are people who seriously considered and seriously thought something could go down. There's going to be people that are taking down electrical lines or power stations, substations, and shit's about to hit the fan. Like, nobody would have thought that 10 years ago that, oh yeah, we're gonna go to war. But the thing is now, when you have a president saying, Proud Boys, stand back and stand by, and you have groups like Antifa, I wouldn't even necessarily call them a group as much as an ideology, which is fine. Yeah. I'm for it. Fuck a fashion.
And Antifa doesn't even actually arm themselves with guns.
Yet. But that's the thing. Like, that could happen. And so, like, I've been saying this forever, that the more these kind of protests are happening and the more violent they get, it's going to stop being the case where, you have militiamen on the right going to state capitals and yelling with a gun in their hand. It's going to be these people meeting with people on the left. And it's not going to be fists being thrown soon. There's going to be gunfire. Yeah. And at what point does it just go away after a day or a week?
Well, and like what's interesting about that is even like going back to like this summer, the George Floyd protests in Minnesota, there were like gun rights advocate groups that were going down to the cities to help protect black-owned businesses. And these were white dudes. Like I'll see if I can try to find the video of this. But they were going and standing out in front and like with these, you know, these big burly bearded white dudes standing arm in arm with like these black dudes, and like, no, we're just here to make sure that, you know, they don't, their businesses don't get burnt down.
Mm-hmm.
And like that was actually really interesting to me because, you know, like so far we've talked about there's two sides. So you've got the left side and the side, for lack of better term, you know, like this cultural divide. But then you've got some of these other fringe, like what would be considered fringe groups, like starting to unite with one another, forming alliances almost, as it were. Like, hey, you know, like these guys that came down to the cities and like were helping with these black business owners or people of color who own businesses and saying, hey, no, we're here to make sure that your businesses don't burn down like the ones that got burnt down on Lake Street.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the thing is, I mean, that is cool. It's a moment of solidarity.
Yeah.
But it's not enough.
That was way off top.
I don't think Alan got the response he was looking for with that eyebrow raise. Like, I made a point, and you're like, I don't know what it is, but yeah.
Well, anyways,
so
like, what I was trying to point out is that like those groups. So like, it's not going to be a traditional two-sided thing. There's going to be like groups on like from multiple sides. You're going to have your traditional left side, north-south divide. And then, but then you're going to also have these other groups that are like, no, we don't buy anything like what either side is trying to like push upon the other.
Yeah, I mean, you're very much looking at like a serious situation where you have 4 or 5 different factions. Yeah. And so, Alan, we were talking about this podcast a little bit earlier. So like one of those groups that could potentially be a big part of it, they were talking about Ted Cruz and what was that weird
the Christian Dominion.
The Christian Dominion.
Here's a little,
tell them about that.
A little bit. Let me pull this up. So, like the Christian Dominion, they believe that it is man has dominion over the earth. This is taken out of a verse in the Bible. Man is given dominion over the earth, and that dominion now also spreads over to the government. That's essentially what they're like, from my reading, what they. And so like Ted Cruz's father is actually really big in this movement. And he claimed that when Ted Cruz won his Senate seat, that it was ordained by God that Ted Cruz was going to bring God back into the American government. And essentially like what their goal is to replace every single like politician is a Christian. It is like an outspoken Christian forcing their Christian Dominion beliefs upon the rest of the government and the rest of them.
Yeah, and people think that's so weird and so far-fetched, but look at how angry we get when somebody wants to build a mosque in a city center, or like why we have mosques getting shot up, or how we're so hostile to somebody in our House of Representatives that's a Muslim from Somalia. You know, oh, she's definitely a jihadist. You know, she's definitely Al-Shabaab or fucking ISIS and all this. But we hate other religions. So, like, that's a huge thing in our government, especially on the right. You know, if you're not a Christian, you can't get elected. And, you know, that truly was part of our electoral system for a very long time.
It's still, it still kind of is. I mean, even this last election, I mean, granted, Biden is only the second Catholic ever to be elected, the first being JFK. But every other president since then has also professed to be a Christian or gotten some endorsement from some Christian denomination.
Yeah, and everybody's going to talk about
Alan with the info tonight. Woof.
We came prepared. But so I mean, like, it's very easy to see these factions forming. I mean, I think you nailed it on the head. So, I mean, I think you have, you know, a theocratic type of group that's like, okay, well, if we're in this, we're going in hard towards our agenda. You know, I think you're going to have more people on the left that are more unified around the idea of like, you know, this is our version of the country. Now, I guess it's our time to make what we see as the most ideal scenario. So one of the things in the podcast they talked about was the idea of city versus rural, because I mean, most cities tend to lean more liberal. So I mean, I think you'd have a situation where If you look at like Minnesota, right? So I mean, you go anywhere north of the cities, and everybody's like, we're tired of having Minneapolis, St. Paul rule our state. 75% of the state's geographic locations voted for Donald Trump for the election, but because Minneapolis, St. Paul voted for Biden, it's going to go Biden. So, I mean, I think you have certain factions like that, even within states, uniting against each other. And all of this it's becoming more realistic all the time. So if you look at between Washington and Oregon, there's this thing that people want to make called the state of Jefferson.
Yep.
Because I mean, Washington
and California, Northern California.
And California, yeah. So I mean, you have these 3 states which are predominantly very liberal,
but
and they
liberalism is denominated by the big cities. Yep.
Yeah, so they want to have an area that is more in tune with their political beliefs, and that's something too that can easily start a civil war. Because I mean, if they don't feel represented by their government, and they're time after time after time after time again, it keeps going that way and getting worse, and they feel like their values are being attacked even more every day. It's kind of like the George Floyd protests. At what point does one straw break the camel's back? And all shit breaks loose. And and back in the day, I had the opinion when it came to guns, because people were always like, I like guns because of the tyrannical government and all that shit. And I was like, good luck with your fucking AR-15 when the government's flying drones over the cities, But I mean, it's not so realistic. I mean, we've seen this in other countries.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, pointing out to the Syria situation and ISIS is that they prove that, hey, guess what? You can go up against the greatest military force in the world and actually have success. Like in that podcast, one of the later episodes, he talks about how like ISIS has actually perfected the art of basically a mobile weapons factory, where they were basically like making their own parts for these mortars, and then the mortar shells were like twice as big as like the standard NATO mortar round.
Yeah, and buying like consumer level drones.
Yeah,
and dropping grenades into tanks.
Yeah, or and he talked about even in that podcast too. He also talked about how like they actually wiped out a Russian airfield for like what was it, 48 hours or a week or something like that. Like completely shut down this major airfield using their homemade drones and homemade bombs dropping.
Yeah, and I think the only difference between us in a situation like that is, I think honestly, I really think truly that the government of the United States would almost be their own character in a massive group of different roles to play in that kind of a conflict. Because truly, like, we both sides have representation in the government. But I mean, I think you're looking more at like street fights. I mean, I truly think that it's going to start in the streets at these kind of protests
in the major cities too.
Yeah, because as we keep going, people are getting more and more militant on both sides. I mean, 10 years ago, there wasn't an Antifa. I mean, you had your weird art teacher out there protesting the Iraq war. Yeah. But now you got dudes in hoods punching people who they say are Nazis. Some of those Nazis really just being conservative dudes that like their gun. Doesn't mean they necessarily love Hitler or love fascism. They may have identified with some values that Donald Trump brought to the table, right or wrong. Doesn't necessarily mean they're fascists. But I mean they're constantly escalating each other.
Yeah. So since I bowed out for the last 15 minutes, so what I'm kind of hearing from, to try to move that topic along then. So America's 244 years old.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Something like that, right? 244. So what I'm hearing from some of the data or information you guys are hearing too, and in your own belief system, is that if there's gonna be that start of like a civil war, it'd start off first probably within the states, right? The own individual states. Because I've heard a lot of people talking about like states separating from the union. because we have that right to. A state can separate from the union if they deem it, deem that the government's not taking care of us, right? So when we talk, and then we talk about like internal separation. So when you're talking about California separating into 2 or 3 different fractions within its own state, so do you guys feel like that the starting process, because we don't think it's going to be a racial situation, we think it's going to be a political and economical situation, right?
Yeah.
So we feel that ground for the start of it is going to be those type of things, right? Is that what you guys are saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to is like people are going to start to feel like they have to take things into their own hands.
Yeah.
Because if you look at like the QAnon conspiracy, right? Like all of these people, all of these QAnon supporters of Trump thought in their hearts and truly felt this, that Trump would be reelected and that Trump was going to throw a bunch of liberal lawmakers and liberal elites into prison.
The deep state conspiracy.
The storm, as they called it. And it never happened. Now you do have a good amount of those people that are like, well, it was stupid. How could I fall for it? You have other people that are saying it was a psyop by the government to root out, dissidents.
Do you remember what I had posted the other day on our one Discord, Matt? Basically, I had said there was people that like you said, someone said how could I fall for that? I feel really stupid. Then you have other people saying that, oh, this is just all part of a grand strategy by Trump. And then you have the third group of people now saying that, oh, Biden was a part of it all along, that he's going to continue the secret deep state war that Trump started.
Well, there's also another group that says, well, fuck Trump. He was weak. He couldn't do it. Now it's in our hands.
Yeah.
Which I think is scarier, because I personally think that's what it's going to come down to. You have these people who say, this is real. Trump wasn't the person to do it. We were wrong about that. But now we're going to take care of this ourselves. And I think
so if they're thinking that Trump was supposed to be the one coming swinging the bat hard, and he swung a little bit too hard, and was less secretive about it than the need, right? Because you have to have a build up, right, to anything, right?
Yeah.
To anything any change that you're going to do, you have to have a build up. You just can't come in swinging.
Yep.
And so if he was the person, let's just say hypothetically, he came in swinging, right, and just kind of like made it known, I'm wearing a pretty T-shirt that says what I'm going to do, and maybe that was too much.
Well, I don't think he did anything. I mean, I think
I don't even know. That's really going outside of what I've ever even looked at.
Yeah, the problem with QAnon is everything he said that would happen never happened. And it was always trust the plan, but it never happened. But I mean, it's scary because they lost that political war. And I think what's going to happen is, if we had to give a realistic timeline of what we think could happen, I honestly think there's going to be an attempt on some politicians' lives, maybe even the president's life. And I think in that situation, mark my words, if Joe Biden gets assassinated, I'm taking out all of my money of the bank.
Yep.
Because that's when I truly think some shit would actually go down.
Yep.
Because, there's never been any attempts on Trump's life as far as we know. But the thing is leftists, or not necessarily leftists, but liberals are kind of pussies. They're not going to be marching with guns in hand.
No.
But I think that could be a turning point. Because as I said already, leftists are buying guns at an astronomical rate compared to before. And, they're answering that challenge.
Which is funny because it's still not anywhere near what the other side has been doing for years in stockpiling. The thing is when it comes to that, is they're just discovering that, hey, guess what? Guns, they're realizing now why the other side is saying, we need to have all these guns. We need to protect ourselves and stuff. Now they're starting to go, oh, maybe we should have that too. But they're also 30, 40, 50 years behind on that.
Some. If you're looking at a Minnesota or Wisconsin liberal, they got guns.
Yeah.
But I think here's a difference, though. Republicans have been stocking up on them guns. Number one, because they like guns, which is fair. Everybody loves, not everybody, but a lot of people like guns
them too.
I love guns. But the right has been constantly saying, the right has been constantly saying, we need to have guns to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government.
I need guns to protect myself from crazy ass people who are scared of a tyrannical government.
But
I don't know, or just crazy
that's where
people.
we're at now. I have it. That's where we're at. Leftists are arming themselves not against a tyrannical government. They're arming themselves against a people group, a section of our country, a population that they view as crazed, as a threat to America in general. Like they view them as an insurgency, and like it kind of goes back to when we've talked about,
and that's where I think I messed not messed up, but like I apparently didn't jump on any bandwagon that was ever out there, because like I'll have those conversations, and like we're having right now, and we'll get the questions like, well, why do you own a gun? And it has nothing to do politically. It has to do with just like, I own guns because I hunt. Mm-hmm. I own guns because I like to shoot targets, and I own guns because people are crazy. And so I do want some. I want my family, and it has nothing to do with a political side or political viewpoint at all. It simply has to do with like, one, I like them because they're cool in my mind. Like they're cool, like, and not cool because of what they can do to other people, but like, when you have one, you just like you enjoy it, right? For whatever purpose you're using it for. But it is simply it's not a political mindset or not a people group mindset. It's simply, mostly protection, and I enjoy having them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know a lot of people that have guns for that reason. There's a majority of the people I know have them because of a political mindset or a people group mindset.
Absolutely.
And that's tough, because then that makes me go, I better look inward just to make sure that I'm still sticking to my core values.
Correct.
I mean, if you're a responsible gun owner, there's not an issue.
Well, it's like, most gun owners, like 99.9% of gun owners are responsible gun owners. They believe. I
wouldn't put it that high, but
I wouldn't put it that high either.
Maybe not that high, but you know what I mean.
You are living out in the sticks, so you only know of. No, just kidding.
I mean, like
your data is still probably better than mine.
But a high percentage of them are responsible. They're not the ones that are going to go, like Rittenhouse and go like open carry. I'm a badass. I got this AR-15.
They don't have a boner every time they're holding a gun.
Exactly, and personally,
or
my guns,
or or they just don't see it. I mean, here's the deal too. It's like, if you guys want to continue with that like mindset of not knowing, if people are prepared, responsible gun owners are prepared then, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know, Matt, you're not a gun owner, but Alan, you are, and you've done
22.
Training. You don't have a pistol.
Not yet. I want one though.
So, but when you take a class, a lot of those classes, majority of those classes, is creating a responsible gun owner with a political mindset behind it. Like that understanding of like, why do you have a gun?
Mm-hmm.
And it better not because it's cool.
And when I took my class for the purchase to permit and conceal carry, one of the things they brought up, and that I really appreciated, even though I may not necessarily align politically with the guy that was doing it, was that he said, you don't get a gun, you don't carry a gun just so just to be like, I have a gun. No, you carry it.
Yeah, for prosperity.
Yeah, you carry it for protection. And like one of the things you have to consider, was that you're also carrying for the protection of others too. So like if a situation happens, you are willing to lay down and willing to put yourself in the line of fire to protect other civilians.
Yeah, I can get down with that. So kind of reeling it back in, how do you, since we talked about social media and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know about different countries infiltrating our social media to try and, do this Russia, kind of shit.
China.
How much do you guys think that social media plays into this too? I mean, because I feel like that you see the nastiest and angriest language from a keyboard, but how much of that do we think translates into a real life situation?
I think a lot of the QAnon followers have definitely have started out by just listening to like these posts on Facebook or Twitter that are a little far out there, but not like you know what I mean. Like it's not, if you want a lie to spread, you give them a little bit of truth. You give them a lot of truth, but then you just add like maybe 10% at the end as a lie, and then slowly you increase that till where it's like at the point where it's like 80% lie, 20% truth. And then at that point, they'll believe anything.
Yeah. So I mean, and you can take it as this, like we talked about social media and my viewpoint, but like, it's even like what we're doing here, right? What are we doing here? We're giving a perspective, and the perspective is our viewpoints, and it might change somebody's viewpoint, right? So it's no different than somebody else coming in and like slowly changing viewpoints. So if you're going to start listening to, if you're going to start listening to Alex Jones, right? Well, it's just, I'm seriously though, like someone's going to turn you on to Alex Jones or flat Earth, people or whatever it may be, like anything out there, or Christianity, what's that mega church weirdo?
The prosperity gospel.
Which one?
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, all of them.
But anything, right? Like anything. So if someone's going to turn you on to that, almost everything that everyone says, there's a little bit of something in there that's going to catch you and keep you watching, right? Even if you disagree, it's going to keep you watching. But sooner or later, you might start to agree, right? That's how we change our perspective. That's how we change our viewpoints. So, you don't believe in being a vegan because, Matt's like, I grill every frickin' day. But then you start, you marry a vegan. You never would.
I'm just kidding.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that, you're with that person, you're with somebody, and they change that viewpoint. Or you find a podcast and you get on it, and you're like, okay, this is interesting. I don't agree, but man, like they're really talking some good data here. So what does this mean? It really comes down to, like, I think we're lost in our values and our understanding, and that's because we've been, the human race is designed to have conflict. And without that, like, where would the growth be? Yeah. Without that, there's no growth. And so, like,
survival of the fittest, man.
Yeah, and the hope is, like, if you whatever your belief system is, whether there is no belief system, we're just here and we're just cells and blah 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 blah. If you're a moralistic person, we're all still fighting for the same thing. But there has to be conflict to get there, unfortunately.
Actually, just to kind of bounce off that, is that if it were not for World War II and World War I, we wouldn't have gone to the moon. We wouldn't have the technology we have today.
We didn't go to the moon.
Ha 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 ha. Okay, Alex Jones.
We wouldn't have the technology because we wouldn't have brought all the Nazis over from Germany to work for us instead.
We still don't have the technology.
But even
Shut up.
You're awful, Graham.
No, we're having that episode. We're having the landing.
Okay,
I would love to have that episode.
No, we are.
To get back on track there,
NASA.
Like you were saying, humans are basically, they do not grow without conflict. Well, if it weren't for the last two world wars, then we wouldn't have the technology we have today. There wouldn't have been the push for computer technology. There wouldn't have been the push for atomic energy, or even nuclear weapons, which drove a lot of the innovations we have today.
Yeah. Well, and we got to look at this too. It's like, to run down our conversation here on whatever our tangent we went on a massive tangent.
Oh yeah.
Which is okay.
Graham and Matt podcast. That's what we do.
Yeah. And we're all sober, so that's weird too. Featuring Alan tonight, man. Alan straight up got this podcast tonight. But no, I think it comes down, like, we have to look at history, and we look at history and say, all right, Hitler was necessary, right? We didn't need Hitler. We don't want Hitler. We don't want that. That was absolutely horrible. I mean, I have family descendants who were a part of that, right? My wife's grandma survived concentration camp.
Yeah.
But without that, you also don't know, like, what to avoid in the future, right?
Well, I mean, so many anti-Semitism was real popular.
Yeah,
and eugenics was real popular.
Point out that Henry Ford himself, or was it Henry Ford or Henry Ford II?
Yeah,
one of them.
And Disney
and Walt Disney were actually like, they had actually had contact with Adolf Hitler, and we're like supportive of him.
Yep. But so we look at these things without having these terrible situations in history. We don't know what to avoid, and they talk about repeating themselves because history does repeat itself, right? You can only rewrite history so many times. Like, we've been around for thousands of years. Deja vu is going to continue over and over again until we either all die or we get it right.
Yep.
But we can figure out these new situations. Like, if another world war happens, we're going to have better technology to have less casualties, right? That's the point. Or better technology to have more casualties, whatever the direction is.
Well, I mean, the next war, like, what was it that's always said the next war will be fought with nuclear weapons, and now they
no.
And drones, but then the war after that is sticks and stones again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I look at this, and so for me to wrap up any thought that I have, or question, my final question to you guys, and since you guys put more time into this one than I have, I'm more passionate about this one for sure too.
There's a lot.
But for me, my question is then, all right, so we're 244 years into this. Empires last for only so long.
Yep.
What do you think it will take for our Constitution not to mean anything to one side or the other, or to both? That's my thought. Like, when we talk about like a civil war and a big change, that essentially means that our Constitution no longer is our binder.
Yeah.
So then what? When you talk about a timeline, I don't see that binder, the Constitution binder holding us together, depleting as quickly as some people think.
Yeah,
but do you think but do you agree that is what it is? It's like that our Constitution no longer can withstand what we're trying
100%.
to be as a country then?
What we, like with all the stuff we've been talking about tonight so far, is that I want to point out, it reminds me of a a quote from Thomas Jefferson, the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants.
Yeah, I mean, for my thought on it,
just to throw that out there. But like, it just like this whole conversation has reminded me of that. Is that
that's true.
In America, like our democracy is founded on like certain things, and Thomas Jefferson was one of our founding fathers, and his belief was that he held that from time to time, patriots will die for the country and we will dispose of tyrants as well.
Okay, but so then now,
the problem is who's the patriots, who the tyrants?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's being whitewashed or washed.
And that's the situation we are in right now. Is we're not sure who are the patriots and who are the tyrants.
Okay,
each person
so then
thinks they're the other side.
Then with any doctrine too, when do we change that context to our time? So when you look at like biblical doctrine and you look at Constitution, when do we change that context to our time? Because now what does that mean?
Well, Thomas Jefferson also said that the Constitution should be a living, breathing document that should change.
Yep.
And it ain't. And you have these assholes who think that it should never change.
Yep.
Our esteemed newest Supreme Court justice being one of those people. That's another episode.
Yeah.
My thoughts on how close we are, I would disagree with you. I think if we had a doomsday clock for our country, I honestly think we're 20 minutes to midnight. Like, I think we're real close. Because like Alan is saying, we think we're the patriots, the other side think that we're the tyrants, and vice versa. Yeah. And
you're giving a 10-year or less time frame is what you feel.
Shit's gonna pop off.
Yeah.
I mean, especially as you have like things like climate taking a shit, economic statuses taking a shit, political ideologies are, spanning further and further every year. Shit's gonna pop off, I think, 10 years or less.
And
100%.
And that's the thing, like going back to that podcast that we recommend, the It Could Happen Here podcast with Robert Evans.
Crap, you should do a damn infomercial for him.
Hey.
Dude, all day. It's so good.
Everybody should listen to that. But like he was even talking about, that was one of the things he mentioned, was that with climate change being an actual real thing, which all three of us can agree that it is.
Well, Graham doesn't think we landed on the moon, so I don't know anymore.
Well, he's our Alex Jones, so He thinks the
whoa.
Hey, Graham, is the water turning the friggin' frogs gay? But like when it comes down to it,
only if it's in Canada, frogs.
I mean, I completely forgot where I was going.
Canadian gay frogs.
Your train was growing and Graham just derailed it.
That's what I'm here for.
He really is Alex Jones.
You got it. I believe in you.
But like you said, Matt, like 10 years left, climate change. With the climate change is that by like 2060 they're predicting, if we do not reduce and reverse what we are doing right now with our carbon emissions, the coastal cities will all be flooded in. So like New York, San Francisco, LA, like all these major cities will get flooded in, and guess where all those people are going to get displaced to? If they don't die, if they don't die from the flooding and the starvation that's going to happen, they're going to all start coming into the Midwest, and that's what this whole Civil War II comes down to. It is the fact that it is basically coastal.
That we need to kill half our nation so we can survive in 2060.
No, because this isn't the Hunger Games.
It's going to become, right?
It's going to become. But like you got what it comes down to is you got coastal elitism versus like Midwestern values. Is really what it comes down to, is rural versus urban values, coastal versus Midwestern values. You've got these people that are from these big cities that think that those people in the Midwest and the rural countries are all a bunch of country bumpkins that don't know jack shit. And then you've got the people from the country, from the rural areas and from the Midwest who are like, those jackasses don't know nothing. They're all a bunch of, frickin'
yuppies
and flower in their hair hippies and all this. But that's what it comes down to. It is like you said earlier, Matt, it is the ideological culture war going on. Is that you have one side that does not care about the other side and vice versa. They think that they know better than the other side. They're not willing to come into the middle to actually have a discussion that will bring them understanding and will make them work together.
So to close this topic then, because we got one more thing we got to talk about after this, it'll be quick. To close this topic, my parting thoughts are, if you don't like this and you don't want this to happen, quit being an asshole to each other. Share recipes, cook some food, eat a dinner together.
Yep.
Everything goes back to what Graham's talked about in every episode, because no matter what, we could be talking about something completely off this and completely unrelated, and somehow Graham is going to sneak in community.
Yep. I was just going to say it.
I know it. I know. That's how I know this
every time.
Yeah.
The community is the most important thing. Don't be assholes to each other. Like, you can all learn from one another and share common values. If we want to survive this as a country, we have to go back to what brings us together instead of focusing on how we're different. If you have to go and shake the hand of somebody you don't like, believe me, it's better than this alternative here of this whole country going up in flames. I like the fact that people punch Nazis, but maybe we have to consider what the implications are for that later.
Exactly. You kick a bully, the bully's going to come back harder. Always do.
Yep.
My parting thought too, then, with this topic is exactly that. Is, not that we're trying to create a fear base here or anything like that. 10 years or less, or 60 years, 40 years until the world floods.
See it coming.
Well, yeah. But either way, our goal is not to cause fear. But ultimately, I think for me, it comes down to that too. Is like, if these things are real, and you believe that these things are real, right? Or you're becoming aware that something's up, right? Something's up with our country, and we know that now even more than we did a month ago, right? So we know that something's up. It does go back down, for me, it goes back down to that community factor. Is you take care of the people you love, and be there for everybody, and build a better, stronger community, all inclusive, because at the end of the day, when we go back to sticks and stones, you have to have community or you ain't going to survive that.
I mean, and, like, my parting thought on this, on just this particular subject, is that we can't necessarily always trust everything that is coming out of the words of our government, the words of our leaders, or the words of the elite even. I mean, it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but, don't you think that it's strange that even during this pandemic, like going even further back into like that episode that we did, that like the Jeff Bezos, the Walmart family all got way richer during the pandemic than the rest of us did. The rest, I mean, like, don't you think that maybe we should open our eyes up a little bit and start investing in our communities versus, hey, I'm just going to go onto Amazon and buy shit. I mean, yeah. I mean, like, I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it.
I was gonna say, Alan, you bought more shit on Amazon this year than you have the last 5.
Oh, I know. Like, we're all guilty of it just because of the convenience and the fact that, hey, I can actually find exactly what I want. But
like government check, yes. Like Jeff Bezos.
Like I was saying though, you can't necessarily trust the elites, the 1%ers. You can't trust that they have our best interests in mind because they don't. They want to maintain the power that they have, and they want to grow that power.
And if that means they're going to keep that power by dividing us, that's what they're going to do. We'll always have more in common with each other than we do with Jeff Bezos.
Exactly.
But thank God we're the clones, and we're just waiting for the episode on Hulu or Netflix to tell us what to do.
Yep. So with all that being said, let me ask you guys this. How is the Facebook experiment?
Well, let me pull mine up, because here's the funny thing. So, like,
wait, pull yours up.
Well, let me pull it because
it's not supposed to be on your phone.
Oh, I put it on there today because I want. Oh,
okay,
no,
okay, no, you're good. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, while Alan's looking it up, let me just explain how this went for me. So, I didn't take it off my work phone. I realized, but I didn't touch it. So, number one. But I did recognize how many times I was bored, and I instantly reached out to my phone to go on Facebook just to realize, I don't have it there anymore.
You were able to feel some of that.
So
100%.
I realized, like, the next day, it was funny because all of a sudden I got a notification. I'm like, what the hell? I thought I removed Facebook. No, what I did was I removed it off my home screen because I have and I moved it into my app drawer because I have a new iPhone that has that capability. And even then, though, like, just the process of moving it into the app drawer, I only used it for like a minute the whole week. Seriously.
So here's what I think is interesting. So my screen time was down 56% from last week.
You're like 8 hours average then?
7 hours and 10 minutes.
Dang, dude. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy?
And most of it was on Safari and Discord.
See, Matt, you're gonna laugh because I did even better. So
I'm into it.
I had an average of screen time of 3 hours this week.
Yeah.
On my iPhone. I forgot to turn it on my iPad, and I used that a lot at work for work. But even then, like, I only used, like, this week a daily average, because most of my time was spent on Snapchat or Reddit. So, most of my average daily time was 2 hours and 15 minutes on socials.
Yeah. So mine daily average went up because of entertainment this week, because while I was at work doing paperwork, I had Amazon Prime playing in the background. Jeff Bezos. And so it went up from 3.5 hours a week daily use to like a week or whatever average to 3:45. So not much, but isn't that crazy though? Like, just the Facebook thing alone, how much time that like took out of you.
Well, I definitely felt the pinch too, because I kept reaching for my phone.
You do.
My pickups actually went up. Like my pickups of my phone went up, I see, but my overall screen time went down.
Now here's again. Now, if you did it another week, your pickups are going to go down.
Hell,
I think we should keep going another week. Honestly, I think we should. Because as much as I seriously missed it, because when I get bored, I reach for my phone and I want to just go doom scrolling on Facebook. I just want to go.
I hate you guys so much, but I deleted it again.
Okay, do you guys want to add another one?
I'm not removing Snapchat. I'm sorry.
Another app?
No,
I'm not ready for that kind of commitment in my life right now.
Another app yet?
I'm more interested to see how we do with another week without Facebook, because one of the things I noticed with not having Facebook was I wasn't inundated with some of like the crazy bullshit conspiracies.
Yeah, I was,
and that peaceful. Honestly made my life. It really made my life a lot more peaceful, not having to, like, while I'm doom scrolling, to not end up having to see any of that.
You guys just made my old hippie ass heart flutter a little bit that you guys didn't do it for a week and that you're taking it off again for another week.
I'm only doing it for you.
I mean, I don't even think you necessarily have to delete it. I think just the act of removing it, like for my case, just removing it from the home screen.
I have to delete it.
Was enough.
I tried that for a little bit, and same thing. The fact that I knew that all I had to do was pull down and type it.
Yeah.
Or it would be a suggested anyway, because if you're like, I really don't on my phone. There's like 3 apps I use essentially on there now because I don't have things on there.
Yeah.
But if I left it there, it'd be a suggestion because it was a top one that I used before. So like I had to get rid of it because it was always suggested. Every time I'd pull it down to like search for calculator, Facebook would be one of the top 3.
I mean, all right, so Graham, you win this battle.
Yeah.
So just a few call outs. So if you're part of our Discord, you notice now we are on Spotify.
Yeah, get on Spotify.
VC. He'll know what it means. So we're on Spotify now. So big shout outs to Anchor. If you're listening to this episode on Spotify, you already heard the advertisement in the beginning for it from yours truly. But seriously, if you thought about making a podcast, Anchor's great. It's free. Do it. We made a penny so far, so thank you guys for all your support.
Yeah. Thanks for you 4 listeners. No,
I mean, like, if you want to see our ugly ass faces, go to YouTube because that's the way to see it.
Yeah. Make sure you check out our YouTube.
And like and subscribe, please.
Yeah.
And comment, because if
let us know how we're doing.
It actually affects the algorithm.
Yeah.
And Graham will comment back. So
absolutely. We do want to chat with you guys. I mean, if you have some time to drop a comment on that video, let us know how we're doing. We're still new at this. Well, me and Graham aren't super new, but we're still all pretty new. So any comments are great. But check out the YouTube. Check out the Spotify if you're an On The Go podcast listener. And definitely join our Discord. We definitely would like to have your input on things.
Maybe be a guest. And speaking of guests, next week is every 4 weeks we're gonna have a guest. And so
next week. That's 2 weeks away.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it is 2 weeks away. But if we want to do it next week, I don't care.
The next episode. Isn't the next episode our guest?
No.
It's the next episode and then the episode after.
That is true.
Yeah. Oh, so then I need to change the date with the person I was going to have on. So anyway, I'll fix that.
We'll figure it out. But you know what? Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. We hit some cool stuff tonight. I hope you guys liked it.
This was an Alan and Matt podcast.
With the great reactions.
Essentially.
Also,
I took the producer role this week.
I hope you guys like my new sunglasses.
Oh my god!
Graham said he wants to steal them.
El Ducho.
Yeah. Shut up. Anyways, this has been
what's up, podcast. Goose? Hi. Good flight, Goose.
Fuck this guy. That's a negative Ghost Rider. Fuck you.
See ya.
VC.
See ya.
You've been watching this Graham Matt podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Graham.
I'm Alan.
This is our Alan.
Peace, guys.
Peace.
See ya.